Hi, welcome to English Avenue today. I am Ethan Cole. Before any spotlight or fortune enters the frame, remember the rule that explains what follows. Growth often travels with failure as its shadow. This story does not open with trophies or headlines. It opens with the sting of rejection and a vow that repeats. I will try again tomorrow. You will not hear a legend polished by luck. You are about to walk through scraped knees, silences, and doors that slam shut. The point is not money or fame. It is the muscle you build when the world keeps saying no and you keep showing up. Imagine a boy laughed at in class, sent home with low scores, told by gatekeepers he is not qualified, not handsome, not needed. Imagine the boy pausing, breathing, and choosing to return the next day. Rejection is not a verdict. It is an invitation to practice. Failure is not a cliff. It is a set of stairs you climb one stubborn step at a time. Measure each scene against your life. Exams that shook confidence. Interviews that went quiet. Messages that never came. The lesson under each bruise is simple. Discipline outlasts disappointment. JackMaStory is a mirror, and in it you may see your unfinished project asking for one more day. Hold that thread. When the crowd says stop, answer with patience. When progress crawls, let courage set the pace. Not success, but struggle. Not applause, but practice. Not destiny, but decision, repeated daily. Now return to a narrow street in Hangzhou, to a boy named Ma Yun. Trace that stubborn vow back to a Hangzhou lane in the 1960 seconds, and you will see its roots pushing through concrete. His given name was Ma Yun, born the 10th of September 1964, in a city tucked behind a curtain that muted the wider world. He was small and ordinary by report cards, living in a modest home on a street where televisions were rare and cars felt like rumors. What he did possess was curiosity with a motor. He asked adults questions they waved away and wondered how a sentence might turn a stranger into a friend. In class, his scores did not sparkle, yet his attention drifted to the edges where new ideas hid. English called to him not as a subject to survive, but as a bridge to cross. At 12, he decided each morning to ride his bicycle to the Hangzhou Hotel, where foreign tourists stayed, and offer help. He would not ask for money. He would ask for conversation, directions to give, stories to swap, and mistakes to make out loud. At 5 a.m., he pushed his bicycle into gray light and pedaled toward a classroom without walls. Lobbies, sidewalks, and tea-house tables became his textbooks. Accents and jokes became his drills. He repeated names until his tongue obeyed and let corrections teach him faster than fear. A cautious country was learning to face outward. A boy was already leaning there. This tension became a forge, burning away the belief that opportunity belongs only to lucky families or shiny schools. In its place came a habit. Look for people, learn their language, serve first. By the time China began to open, he carried a window shaped by those mornings and by travelers who noticed a kid reaching past his street. He had no certificates to impress, but he had a compass. Curiosity pointed outward, and effort moved his feet. That compass would be tested next by exam halls that rarely show mercy. Armed with street-made curiosity, he carried it into formal classrooms and met a gatekeeper with a hard face. Testing. Self-teaching filled the cracks, but paper still demanded marks. In middle school, he failed twice, and in high school, he failed 3 times. Each setback brought the same routine. Walk home, sit with disappointment, and promise that tomorrow would arrive. China's Gaokao raised the stakes. He sat for it, stumbled, and tried again. The second attempt collapsed and confirmed the whispers. He treated those labels like bad weather, unpleasant, but not a reason to stop moving. He kept speaking with travelers, copied phrases into battered notebooks, and prepared a third attempt. When he passed, the victory felt less like fireworks and more like a door opening after patient knocking. He entered Hangzhou Teachers Institute, later Hangzhou Normal University, to study English in a classroom that finally matched his effort. The campus had little glamour, but for him it was vast, a place to test voices, ask clumsy questions, and turn errors into drills. His degree was not a certificate of genius. It was a receipt for persistence, proof that repeated effort converts rough beginnings into workable skill. By graduation, he had a sturdier voice, a thicker skin, and a method for tackling fear. Break it down, show up, ask, try again. Dawn rides taught him to find teachers anywhere. Failures taught him to outlast embarrassment. Together they formed a curriculum no setback could erase. With that receipt in hand, he stepped through the gates toward the labor market, where no would wear uniforms and force a rout. With persistence stamped on his diploma, he entered the job market and learned how many uniforms the word no could wear. He knocked on doors and met a wall. He applied to about 30 places, and each answered no. The police said he did not fit. A hotel declined him for talking too much. At KFC, 24 applied and 23 were hired. He was the one left out. He wore rejection like a coat, heavy at first, then useful against doubt. Guiding visitors in Hangzhou, he met an American family who liked his persistence. They nicknamed him Jack, and their letters widened his window on the world. The new name did not change his luck, but it sharpened his aim. He mailed applications to Harvard 10 times and collected 10 rejections. If the gate would not open, he would search for another door or build one plank at a time. What he needed next was not another application, but a new question, one that arrived the first time he touched the internet. The first time he sat at a computer, he did not see code. He saw a map of missing stories. He typed the word beer and found American beer and German beer, but nothing from China. He typed China and found almost nothing again. The absence kept him awake that night. He stared out a window and asked, "Why is my country not on the internet? And who will change that?" A quieter thought arrived. Maybe no one has done it because no one tried. Maybe that person is me. He did not know how websites worked, did not write code, and did not own fancy equipment. He did have the habit of naming a problem and stepping toward it. If the screen revealed a gap, the gap was an invitation. He returned to China, aiming to help local businesses go online and meet the world. That aim would soon collide with low trust, rules, and a market not ready, but it would not fade. The idea sounded simple. The reality would test every inch of patience he had built. He borrowed a small sum from friends, just enough to rent a desk, gather a few allies, and print leaflets, and called the venture China Pages, a modest bridge for small Chinese companies to step onto the web and wave at the world. He went door to door, factory to factory, stall to stall, translating internet into everyday benefits. More buyers, new markets, faster information. People stared at the beige monitor as if it were a television that forgot how to entertain. Some laughed. Others warned him to get a serious job. Regulations were murky, connections were thin, and the telephone lines that carried data crawled. He and his team kept explaining, sketching diagrams on napkins, and promising that screens could carry trust if people were taught how to look. Orders trickled, then snagged. Partners hesitated. The venture sagged under a weight it could not yet lift. He did not curse the season. He called it a lesson. Failure, he decided, is a teacher who charges a high tuition but leaves you smarter if you stay for the full class. China Pages did not become a success story. It became a workbook covered in red marks. He learned how to sell an invisible idea, how to listen when a shopkeeper's fear said more than his words, and how to spot the difference between timing and talent. He closed that chapter without drama, pocketed the pages that mattered, and repeated a familiar promise to himself. Tomorrow, I will try again. And the next tomorrow would begin in a crowded apartment with no furniture worthy of a company, only belief. Belief, however, multiplies when shared. He invited friends, 17 of them, into a small Hangzhou apartment, and the furniture that mattered was the circle they formed on the floor. He spoke not of a perfect plan, but of a door the world already knew. Say, "Open sesame," and let small businesses enter a treasure cave called opportunity. The name Alibaba was sticky, global, easy to remember. The mission was bolder than their means. They had no rich backers, no sophisticated code base, and no map to follow. only a promise to connect Chinese suppliers to buyers everywhere. They turned the living room into a war room. Whiteboards against walls, phone cords like vines, instant noodles as fuel, sleep borrowed in thin slices. Banks turned them down with professional politeness. Risk officers circled phrases like too early, unclear collateral, unproven model. He kept pitching until a different kind of listener appeared. Masayoshi, son of SoftBank, sat with him, listened for minutes, and said he would invest. Jack asked if he wanted a business plan. Son answered he was investing in the person. $20 million did not fix everything, but it bought time, talent, and a runway long enough to test ambition at speed. Jack's philosophy sharpened in that moment. Hire people smarter than you and remove the friction that keeps their intelligence from compounding. He was not trying to be the star. He was trying to be the conductor, making sure each instrument could be heard. With a team that believed, a name that traveled, and a vote of confidence that silenced doubters, they left the apartment behind and stepped into the first real rooms of Alibaba. Yet rooms and funding do not build endurance. Culture does, and the next years would prove it. Culture began as a choice and hardened into the engine. He refused to turn the office into a gray maze where people hid their energy. He gave everyone a playful nickname, danced at morning stretch breaks, and sang badly but loudly at karaoke nights because enthusiasm, he insisted, is a renewable resource if you recharge it together. He pushed a simple rule. If you want people to work like owners, you must treat them like owners. That meant trust with accountability, laughter with deadlines, and celebration even when the victory was small. The company grew on this mix of rigor and warmth. By 2002, more and more small businesses were signing up, trading information, and discovering that a listing in English could echo far beyond a provincial road. Then a shadow crossed the river. eBay, huge and confident, arrived in China, acquired a local player, and unfurled its international playbook. The logic was brutal. Scale, capital, and experience crush upstarts. Fear flickered in the hallways. Jack gathered the team and drew a picture in words. eBay is a shark that dominates the ocean. We are a crocodile born in the Yangtze. Meet them where we know the waters, and we can survive. That metaphor was not a flex, it was a strategy. They would compete, not by copying a foreign template, but by doubling down on local knowledge, speed, and a user experience that felt like home rather than an imported machine. The next move would become a legend, and it would begin with a gift. Free. Free was not a gimmick. It was a statement of allegiance. In 2003, the team launched Taobao, a marketplace designed for Chinese sellers and buyers, and they tore out the toll booth that eBay defended. Listing fees. Let's win their hearts first. Money will come later, Jack told his people. And then he stayed in the office deep into the night, so they knew the promise had a face. The product choices matched the culture. A bright, friendly interface replaced the moody grays. Chat tools let buyers and sellers talk directly, turning strangers into neighbors. Tutorials and community tips lowered the anxiety that had kept many shopkeepers on the sidewalk staring in. Meanwhile, eBay kept spending, advertising, and flexing the muscle that had worked elsewhere. But muscle shrinks when it does not understand the task. Sellers here wanted to be seen, educated, and encouraged. They wanted a platform that spoke their rhythms, holidays, slang, and fears. Taobao answered in their dialect, online and cultural. The community grew not just in numbers, but in temperature. People felt welcomed, not processed. In 2005, Yahoo invested $1 billion for a significant stake in Alibaba, and Jack accepted on one non-negotiable condition: control stays local. The money expanded servers, teams, training, and logistics support. The mission stayed rooted. By 2006, eBay withdrew its mainland marketplace. Narratives later called it a victory of the nimble over the giant. Inside Alibaba, it felt like a referendum on empathy. They had not merely beaten a competitor. They had chosen a side, the seller with a dream, and built features that respected that choice every day. Jack cautioned against arrogance. We didn't win because we are better. We won because we stayed close to the people. The crocodile had held its river. Now it was time to build a whole watershed around it. A watershed, unlike a single stream, needs payments, logistics, computing, and doors to new continents. So they laid rails. Alipay emerged to make trust programmable, holding funds in escrow so a skeptical buyer and an anxious seller could meet halfway. AliExpress opened a route for small Chinese businesses to sell abroad without hiring a translator for every order. A cloud arm grew to power the company's own traffic, then graduated to power other companies as well. Each piece answered a friction point: how to get paid, how to be found, how to scale, how to survive a surge. While the parts multiplied, the story cohered gives small players the tools usually reserved for giants. In September 2014, that story walked onto the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in a simple suit with a nervous smile and rang a bell heard around the world. The IPO set records and briefly crowned him the richest man in China. Reporters asked how it felt. He said the money wasn't his, that he was holding it in trust for the people, and he intended to use it wisely. Markets cheered. Inside the company, the memo stayed the same: keep serving the small. A listing is a snapshot, not a destination, and the days after the fanfare test whether a mission can survive applause. His answer was to pour resources back into infrastructure, merchants, and talent, even as cameras chased him down hallways. The stage was global now, but his North Star did not move. And when a person's North Star stops moving, another question arrives. What do you build beyond business? Beyond business, he kept circling back to the classroom, where his voice first found courage. He established a foundation and walked into rural schools where roofs leaked and hope did too, bringing books, training, and attention that money alone cannot stage. He spoke to teenagers in China, then in Africa and Southeast Asia, and his advice was gentle but unsparing. Don't chase money, chase learning. Don't fear failure, use it. Don't try to be the best, try to be the most you. He funded programs for entrepreneurs who looked like he once did underdogs with more grit than contacts, and insisted that helping young people and small businesses was not charity, but strategy for a future that works. Between 2010 and 2014, as the company expanded, his personal attention kept drifting toward education as a system, not as a donation line. He began preparing the team for a moment. Leaders often mishandle, stepping aside before the chair becomes a throne. Succession, he said, is not a ceremony. It is a curriculum you teach over years. He would leave not because he had nothing left to give, but because others did and they needed room. When the plan met the date, he chose a day with layered meaning: his birthday and Teacher's Day. That choice was not accidental. It was a signature. When the day arrived, the 10th of September 2019, he walked onto a stadium stage in Hangzhou in a leather jacket, guitar strapped on, thousands of employees singing and crying and filming all at once. He sang too, off-key as usual, then told the story one more time. Not a genius, often rejected, never stopped. He reminded them that money is a tool, humility is a policy, and optimism is a decision. He left not as a boss, but as a friend who trusts you with the house keys. Retirement did not mean silence. It meant a different classroom. He traveled, met teachers, launched rural education projects, and kept repeating the same invitations to the young. Help the small. Plant seeds. The day after tomorrow is beautiful. Then, in late 2020, he criticized parts of the financial system at a conference in Shanghai, and the spotlight turned harsh. He stepped off stage and vanished from public view for months. Rumors filled the vacuum. Arrest, exile, pressure. He reappeared in a short video, smiling but subdued, speaking of teaching and philanthropy. He did not litigate the rumors. He simply redirected attention to the work he said mattered. Meanwhile, wealth rankings shifted as markets moved, and as he stepped back from daily command, he did not pivot to yachts or mansions. He stuck to simple clothes and quiet routines. His wife, Zhang Ying, his college sweetheart, kept their family away from headlines. and he kept returning to classrooms most cameras ignore. The public learned to speak of him in two registers: the entrepreneur who built an ecosystem, and the teacher who kept escorting students across a fragile bridge. His quotes continued to circulate on dorm walls and shop counters. If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Help young people and small guys. Today is hard, tomorrow is harder, but the day after tomorrow is beautiful. As you close this story, it is worth returning to the first promise. Rejection will visit you under many names. Greet it with patience. Failure will test you in new uniforms. Answer with practice. Build where you stand, in your language, with your neighbors, and keep your culture warm enough that other people can work at their best. If a door does not open, knock longer. If it stays shut, build your own. One day, perhaps without fanfare, you will look back and see that struggle was not the tax you paid for success. It was the tutor that made you worthy of it. And when your moment to step aside arrives, choose it with grace, hand the keys to the next builder, and keep teaching because the world's best classrooms are waiting wherever a beginner needs a hand. Was this story useful or inspiring? If it gave you ideas, share this video with a friend, a classmate, or someone in your family who needs a boost today. Your share could be the spark they're waiting for. And don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to English Avenue today and turn on the notification bell. We release practical English stories every week to grow your listening and confidence. Join our learning community now and keep rising, one lesson at a time.